Is anybody new here for the first time?
I think so.
No? All right, so you're all, you don't need the introduction to 40 plus and what we're about because you all know because you've been here before. And so I think we'll probably just get started. We've got Faizun here who's been here before and he's a good friend of 40 plus to talk about a somewhat alternative way about thinking of work. And Ken will tell you a little bit about upcoming events and programs. We have a couple of evening events coming up. And
Some introductions too. Fun. Lightning round.
And our esteemed guest here, Gina, and we was graduate or last classes at the end of the program, going to do her final TMA for grad, so for the small grad. You're lucky it's a small grad.
That's right.
I'm planning that way.
And as we've been doing for the last couple of times, we'll do a little bit of lightning introduction of everyone. Name, field, and then just 3 words that describe you, capture you, or whatever. 3 words only. Keeps it nice and short. So.
And you're going to model that.
I'm going to model, okay. Eric Herding, Reformed Corporate Finance Executive. Humorous. Innovative. And energetic.
So we're going to do introductions first, and then we can talk about upcoming stuff. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, Eliana? You up? All right, we thought we were going to go this way. No, that way.
So, I'm Ileana Mendez. I'm a business owner as a graphic designer, branding, corporate identity, and I am creative, independent, and in transition.
Hyphenated, good. This is a hyphenated exception to get us the 3 words. Okay, Joe, you're up.
Joe Gorowski in international development, dedicated, creative as well, and humorous.
How many club? Linda?
Linda Gross, freelancer, administrative, house sitter, and 3 words describing caring, mature, and this is a hyphenated one, eager to learn.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, Michelle Higgs. I guess creative arts, you could say, that's my field. I'm driven. I am energetic and passionate.
Wonderful.
Gina Manley, independent consultant, events and operations guru.
Oh, those are 3 words. Okay, good. You could have used, okay.
Good morning, Sterling Phillips, a mediator, consultant, and reformed lawyer. Good listener, creative, and humble.
So I'm Ken Shopman, association executive. My 3 words this week are going to be caring, caffeine, cats. Those are things that are important. All right. So what's coming up at 40 plus, you might have seen on the slides. This Thursday, we're going to be at Corporate Gray, which is a job fair focusing primarily on people separating from the military. But don't let that intimidate you. There's a terrific amount of employers, primarily in the tech and security space. So think about all the Beltway Bandits and all those kinds of groups. So if that's relevant for you or people you know, encourage them to take a look at it. It's in Springfield, Thursday morning, 9 to 12:30. And then on Monday, during this time, so I won't be there, but I hope maybe somebody else from 40 Plus will be there. Another one of our regular career fairs is taking place at the Doubletree in Arlington. Again, a modest range of employers, I think, there. But as I said before, it's an opportunity to practice. Practice your message, practice engaging with people, and it's all about networking. And then next Thursday, there's Women in Technology, their fall career fair, which is a terrifically impressive event. I was there as an individual in the spring. Again, lots in as the title implies, in the technology space, but an interesting and I think an impressive range of companies from large, like Microsoft, SAP, to small subcontractors, again, primarily in the tech space. But they also need, contract people and grants people and those kinds of things. So those are 3 events that are coming up. You might have seen the flyer outside. We've got our October evening event scheduled for October 12th, where we're going to talk about career happiness is not a myth. So that'll be Thursday evening on the 12th. Registration is open for that. So that's all enough of the 40-plus commercial. Faizun, thank you very much for joining us. I think in our close to a year here in our new location, you may be the only repeat speaker we've had. So backed by popular interest and topic and innovation. So we're terrific.
It's too kind.
No, we're very glad to have her. Faizun maybe is a recovering corporate executive as well. I think we have a couple of others in the room. She is a coach, an entrepreneurship coach and franchise specialist here in Maryland, DC, and Virginia. After a long career as a corporate executive, she was affected by a restructuring, so she understands the realities of transitioning from being a salaried employee to an entrepreneur. She worked closely with FranNet, the country's largest franchising consulting company that matches individuals with franchising opportunities through a free and extensive individualized education and coaching process. Faizun's background includes senior roles at organizations including Verizon and Johns Hopkins University, and we're very pleased to have her back with us. So Faizun, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's Ken's a good friend. It's always a delight to be back here at 40 Plus. I was speaking to this gentleman whose job I make it very difficult every time I come here because I prance around the room, I never stand still. I was talking to him and I said, I love this group because you guys are in a position that I was not too long ago, where I had years of experience behind me, I had done some really fantastic things, found myself, for the first time in my adult life, I was laid off. And I started questioning my worth. What did that mean? Am I worth anything? Am I good at anything? And then trying to figure out what the next steps in my life would be. So I'm always delighted to be here. Welcome. We're going to do things a little bit differently today. It's a small enough group. I'd love for you guys to jump in, ask questions, make comments as we go through. I will spend a shorter amount of time on the slides because I want to hear from you guys. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Yeah? I really do want this to be about you and what you need from this session. In the vein of Ken's introduction, yes, I'm a reformed government relations public policy executive. I'm a franchise coach now, or an entrepreneurship coach, and my 3 words would be intuitive, inspired, and irreverent. I like to have fun with what I do. I spent far too many years not loving what I did, and I don't want to do that anymore. So, with that, Ken sort of did the introduction a little bit here. I'm with a company called FranNet, which is also a franchise. I'm a franchisee, and the only service we offer, because a franchise is usually provides either a service or a product. The service we provide is we offer franchise consulting to individuals who are looking at alternative career options. That's the one thing we do, right? I'm a one-trick pony. A lot of people ask me, well, that's great. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'd love to work with you, but how much do I pay you? And the answer is absolutely nothing. So think of me in exactly the same way you would think of an executive headhunter, right? So I have companies, in this case franchises. I have qualified employees, in this case clients, and through a proprietary assessment and matching process that we have, we bring the two together. And when you buy the franchise pays FranNet, and that's how I get paid. Does that help? Because that's a question I get a lot, right? So my services are free. Use me, do not abuse me. All right, with that, I thought this is what we'd talk about today. Eric, can you see? Good. I thought we'd start with the most obvious things. Monday morning, 9:30, metro is a freaking mess as always. Why did you guys come here on a Monday morning so early? There must be something about business ownership that, at the very least, intrigues you a little bit that you'd like to know more. Am I right? Yeah? So I thought we'd start there. There are typically three ways in which you can begin a business. You can start a business from scratch. You could be a Mark Zuckerberg, right? You could buy an existing business from someone, or you could choose to buy a job. You could choose to buy a franchise, right? There are a lot of myths out there about franchising, and you guys have a lot of them without letting the chief. I will talk about them and we'll break them down because that can really help in understanding for your own self, is this a viable option for you or not? Yeah. Number 4 is probably the biggest question and concern that I get from clients. Faizun, can you ensure me that I am not going to lose the shirt off my back? And the answer is I cannot ensure that 100%, but I can certainly significantly decrease your risk because there's a process. Right? Does anybody know, in the United States, how many franchises do we have currently, just in the United States? Yes?
500,000.
No, not that many.
200,000?
Not that many. Come down.
50,000?
Come down.
50,000?
Come down.
20,000?
Come down.
10,000?
Come down.
Yeah, 8,000?
Come down.
5,000?
3,200.
Okay.
About 3,200.
You mean businesses that do franchising?
So a Subway is a franchise. Subway owners are franchisees. So I don't mean how many
Yeah.
franchisees. That's not what I meant. How many companies?
Got it.
Sorry, should have clarified.
I don't know.
Right? You have about 3,300 just in the United States alone. So if you're sitting here today and you're saying, well, you know, I've done what I needed to do, and I think a franchise is my way forward, where would you begin?
I'll call you.
Call me. I'm hoping that's what you guys will say at the end of this session. Call me, right? But that becomes one of the obstacles why people don't go down this path. I don't know where to begin. I don't know where I should look. How do I know what business is the right fit business for me, for who I am? Did you have a question, Lina?
No, I was going to say, find out what companies have franchises available.
We will get into the question of territory availability. For a lot of franchises that are very popular, I can't even show them to you because they're fully sold out in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. Right? So there's that issue you're going to run into. And then lastly, a lot of people say, this is one of the myths, by the way, I'd love to do it, but a franchise costs $1 million. Wrong. It does not cost anywhere near $1 million. Some do. Some do, but for the most part, they don't, right? What are financing options out there if you didn't have what you needed to invest in the business? Is there any other burning question you guys have in your mind that you'd like me to address?
It's probably embedded in that, but do you find that there are particular businesses that lend themselves to successful franchising, or that are more prevalent as a franchising model as opposed to a go it alone? That they've, you know what I mean?
That's a great question. So,
I mean, food service is obvious because it's what we see every day, but I'm sure there are many others that might be hidden.
yep. The best way I can answer you, Ken, is to say, if you can think it, it's probably already franchised or on their way to being franchised. I will get into that. But there are typically 5 major categories of franchises, other than fast food, which, by the way, another myth is people think what? It's all about burgers and fries.
Yeah.
There's nothing else out there, right? Not so.
But
Any other questions? Yes, Sterling.
in terms of the financing, what if you don't have very good credit? Is that still a possibility that?
That's a great question. So I'm not a financial counselor.
Mhm.
What I would do, if you and I had a conversation, I'd look at your basic financials. I'd look at your assets, your liabilities. I'd look at your credit score. And then I would put you in touch with one of my partners that I send a lot of my clients to. If you're not able to start now, let us look at what you need to put in order to be able to start someday in the future. But at least you know where you need to go, right? And you can start planning for that. Does that help?
That helps. One last question.
Yes,
I'm gonna
please.
run, but,
Please.
given that I told you I'm interested in me. I'm interested. How would I don't know if there's a franchise out there around that area that for instance, that's in my area of interest. But what kind of things should I consider? We have to have more of a conversation. What kind of things could there be something that would could intrigue someone like me, someone out, something that, I don't know if I'm asking the right question, but I mean, why would I want to consider
No, you're
franchising
asking-
if I already have an interest in doing, know what I want to, think I want to know what I want to do?
You're probably asking something that is in almost everyone's mind, and the answer to that is, I don't know.
Okay.
And I will not know until you've done the first step in our process, which is, I would send you a link to what's known as your PFA, your Personal Franchise Assessment.
Okay.
It's an online tool, take you about 30 to 40 minutes, depending on how tech savvy you are or not.
Okay.
And then the first piece asks you a bunch of little questions. When you give me an answer, it helps me build a profile of what does Sterling's potential business DNA look like. The second part of the assessment are the financials, assets, liabilities. I want to get a sense of your net worth. For purposes of a franchise Sterling, everyone needs to have at least $50,000 in liquidity. Can be cash in a savings checking, can be stocks and bonds, can be an IRA that you can roll over. 50,000.
50,000.
50,000.
Okay.
In terms of net worth, typically we look for clients who have $500,000. So 50K, 500K. I have worked with clients who are in the 250, 300 range. Anything below the 250 makes it very difficult for me to find viable options for you guys.
That would include real estate or home, personal home, as far as that works.
Absolutely, absolutely. Send me an email, I will jump on a call. And I'm happy to answer your specific questions.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely, you're very welcome. Any other questions? Okay. All right, so the most obvious place, right? How many people, when you were doing your introductions, I heard a couple things. How many in the room have a business currently? No? Like you said, events?
I'm doing 1099.
1099, okay. No one has a business?
Sort of have a business.
Okay.
I had a very good business a while ago, and I'm still sort of continuing it, but I'm not doing a lot of work right
How many of you are, it's an obvious question, but I'll ask anyway. How many of you are in transition? How many of you are looking for a job in the corporate world? Sorry. How many of you are open to looking at options outside of a job in the corporate world? Okay. Why is that?
now. Survival.
Survival. What else? Why?
I've kind of gotten accustomed to working the way I work.
Yeah.
My own schedule, the way I work without somebody eating me over the head.
And what do you do?
I like that. I'm a voice talent.
Voice stuff.
So I do commercial stuff, podcasts, things along those lines.
Fantastic.
Once I wake up my voice.
So, I think at the end of the day, this is what we're moving forward towards, right? Any and every opportunity we look at in our career, in our lives, it's always with the thought of how can my life and the life of my family be better in some way. And better is defined differently by different people. So my definition of better might be very different from Ken's or Liliana's. Right? We all have different definitions. But the better leads to success, the definition of success. Similarly, each of you in this room today, you will define success in your life as very different from the person sitting right next to you. Now, the blue boxes are typically the three big categories of things that people want in their lives, that they're moving forward. Either the fulfillment of certain needs, wants, desires, right? Fill in the blanks. This is a huge one in our society today. Flexibility, right? Between my work and my family life, particularly if you have children, even if you don't have children, right? The flexibility. And independence. Financial independence. How many more years would you need to work before you could effectively retire? Scary question for most of us. Why? Because we know we are nowhere near there. That's the reality, right? The red boxes are what I call stressors or pain points. When I was looking at what the next steps of my life looked like, every single one of these was one of my stressors. How many of you have at least one or more of these in your life right now? Yeah? I have never yet had anyone in any seminar not raise their hands. Never, not one. Right? We all feel one or more of this. If you're feeling one or more of this, know that there are options out there. Particularly if you are looking at a corporate job and you're struggling to find something, right? Something that fits who you are, your background, your experience, your talents, your seniority, etc. There are options out there. Growing up, we've all heard, I know I did, it's safe to have a job, right? You have job safety. You go to school, you go according to the formula, you get the degrees, then you start with a good company, and you move up the ranks, and you stay there for a while, and you're safe. How many of you have heard that? Yep, we all did. From well-meaning people, our parents, our family, our friends, right? This is the reality, however, in the world that we live in today. If you think of it as a chart, when you begin in a new job, your risk is the lowest. It's very ironic. Your risk is the lowest. As you move through the company, every year you spend, your risk goes up. So let me say this to you in a different way. When there's time for a corporate layoff, there's a 52-year-old executive with a big salary and bonus, and then there's a 30-year-old. Who do you think is the first to go?
52.
As you move up and you gain more seniority in the organization, your risk level goes up, even though you're more experienced. Right? Even though you know the company better, you know how to do X, Y, and Z. That's the reality. I won't go through each of these. Raise your hand as you are looking at a job right now. You have thought about one or more of these as considerations. That's right. That's exactly right. You, each of us, we have to fit ourselves into the job description. Right? So all of these different sessions that we see at various places, right? How do you tailor your cover letter? How many of you have tailored cover letters? I knew I did enough where if I saw one more, I would vomit.
Sure.
True? Yeah, true. Right? You have to fit yourself in the job description. You have to force fit yourself to fit the company, to fit the position. Now, let's look at scenario B. We say the safety of a job, right? Or is it the risk of a job? Conversely, we've always said it's job security, but is it really job security or is it the insecurity of job security? So look at this graphic. How many of you have experienced that firsthand? The interviewers are saying, we are looking for someone aged 22 to 26 with 30 years of experience. Right? Now, these folks are smart. They know that if I said, Eric, we like you, but man, you're just too old for this job, they would get their ass kicked. Legally and otherwise. Right? But this is what they're saying. Oh, Ileana, you are fantastic. I mean, you look fabulous on paper, and man, you would bring us such great experience, but they will give you a very nicely packaged answer as to why they cannot
You're
bring you in.
overqualified is the usual term.
Our budget is only X. You know,
Right?
we don't want you to leave.
We don't want you to leave. When Ken knows the story, because I've shared this with him, after I got laid off from 7 years of being at Verizon, part of my severance package included 6 months of outplacement service at an organization called Lehigh Terracin. That's not the name, right? Okay. Every week I would meet a group of my peers, very much the way you guys do here at 40 Plus, and we would sit around and we'd talk about, oh, you know, I interviewed here, I applied here, blah, 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 right? Kind of, it was an emotional support group. This is the thing, and I absolutely hated it. Colleagues who would say, yeah, you know, the advice is you can only put the most recent 15 years on your resume. How many of you have heard that? Right? So my question became, what part of your life are you deliberately pretending didn't happen? This is look, my friends, this is the way I look at my life. I have spent a lot of money, a lot of time trying to be the best at what it was I did. I went to school, I got the degrees, all of you did. And now here I am, I'm being told, because at the end of the day, you can write whatever the heck you want on your resume. At some point, when you do get the interview, you do have to show up in person, don't you? Yeah? These are the issues that we are now running into. and particularly in the context of 40 plus where you guys are, this is the key issue. You're overqualified. We want the best of the best, the creme de la creme of whatever in this industry, but we're not willing to pay you for it. We will get somebody who's younger, and we'll have to pay them only half of what we can pay you, right? This is the thing at play. So, brings me to the next piece of it. So, is business ownership really risky? Or in today's society, is business ownership the least risky or the less riskier option that you have in front of you? And the answer may be very different for you. I know what it was for me. It might be different for you, but it might not, right? If you look at this chart, when you're starting a business, your risk is the highest in the beginning. Can anybody tell me why that is? Why do you think that is?
You're building a new business, trying to get clients.
Don't really know what you're doing, learning the systems, learning the products. Yes, ma'am?
Economies of scale.
Economies of scale. That's a good one. Are you an econ major?
No, but
Economies of scale, right? Bunch of different reasons why the risk is highest when you begin. But guess what happens? As time goes on, your risk becomes less and less. Let me ask you guys this question. When you start in a new job, the effort that you're putting into the job on day one, and the effort that you're putting into it at the end of year 5, is it the same? Can you go down? Can you take your foot off the pedal? Can you, relax a little bit? Can you do that? Think of what you guys did in the corporate world. Can you do that? Do you have the option of doing that? For most people, the answer is no. Here's the beauty with the business that you own. In the beginning, so I joke, when I first started my business in that first year, only God and I knew what I had to do. And I would leave it there, right? I knew what I needed to do, what I had to do. But as time goes on, with my business, it's me. I own the business. Once I have paid off my debts, I fully own the business, and then it's my equity that's growing, right? As time goes on, I do have the ability to take my foot off the pedal. Because I have good systems in place. I have processes in place. With a job, that's not possible because I don't own the enterprise. This I do. Does that make sense? Yeah? Questions? Comments? Let's move now into what are the different business ownership options we have. Okay? Start a business. This is an option. I like to say, if you think of yourself as a classic entrepreneur, this is the option for you. What's a classic entrepreneur? Mark Zuckerberg is a classic entrepreneur, right? He looked at the marketplace and he said, I have an idea for a completely different product. He created a whole set of industries, whole set of markets once he created that platform, right? What are the advantages? You do have complete and total control. It's your baby. Right? It's your final say-so because you began. As the founder, CEO, whatever word you want to use, you do make all the decisions. Nobody tells you what to do. You started it. Of all the options that are out there, in this option, you have the biggest upside. You do keep all the profits. With a franchise, you do not keep all the profits. You pay your franchisor a royalty. Right? And we'll get into the pros and cons. Because there's not a silver bullet out there that works for everyone, right? It'll work for you, it won't work for you. But in a nutshell, these are the biggest advantages of starting a business from scratch, which is what a lot of people do. Right? They put up their shingles and they have a business. It's very easy to start a business. The disadvantages. How many of you have heard of a franchise being referred to as a business in a box? Anyone? Yeah? Gina, why is it called a box? Why is it a business in a box?
Because you have a lot of resources in that box.
What sort of resources?
You have stuff out on marketing, location, people, best practices.
So, what Gina's referring to in the franchising industry is called a system. The royalty that I pay for is because FranNet gave me a manual and said, here you go, Faizun. For your franchise fee and your ongoing royalty, here's the support that we are going to provide you on the back end. With a startup business, there is no manual, my friends. You create the manual, you write the manual, right? You create the systems. This truly is one of those scenarios where you are in business for yourself and by yourself. How many of you have ever heard the phrase, entrepreneurship is a very lonely journey? Yeah? Sure, you can share with your friends, you can share with your spouse. How many of us know other people who are in exactly the same shoes as we are in? Same exact industry, facing the same exact challenges. You really don't feel like you have a lot of people to turn to when you are starting a business from scratch. My friend here, Mr. Eric, will corroborate this. With a startup business, the most likely reaction you will get from banks when you go to them to ask for a loan is they will laugh you out of the building. Most likely. Why? Somebody tell me why that is. Why do you have the most limited financing options? What do you think? Guess.
There's no track record of any kind to depend on. If your idea is truly new, there's no way to evaluate its potential for success. And if you're just getting started out, there's no revenue stream.
That's right. There's no historical financial results. You are a fully unproven entity. Therefore, your default risk, as far as they're concerned, is the highest.
100%.
Approximately 100%. Right? This is a really huge one for someone starting a business from scratch. Because most of us do not have the kind of money we need to really start a business at the scale that we want to. And we will need a loan, right? Give me guesses. How many years do you think it is before a business started from scratch starts to make money?
3.
Give me another guess.
5.
3, 5, 7. Give me one more guess.
10.
10. That's the average number of years it takes for a business started from scratch, I said, to make money. Meaning, you invest $100 in the business, you get back the $100. What have you done? You've broken even. From that point forward, every penny you make is profit, right? It takes you 10 years before you can do that. So the question then becomes, are you able to wait 10 years until you start to make money from your business? And for most people, that answer is no. 10 years is far too long. Census Bureau, year in, year out. This sort of business, this category of business has the highest failure rate of any businesses in the United States. In fact, I think it's a global stat, not just in the United States, but I'm talking US Census Bureau numbers. Questions? Don't look so depressed.
Faizun, just
Yes,
a
sir.
quick question for
Yes.
clarification. Are you defining starting up a business as different from what we see so often as people becoming their own consultant, becoming an independent consultant?
That's a good question.
Because here in Washington, that's the path, right? Everyone who's
That's
in
the path.
transition, most people.
I would say yes.
Mhm.
Conversations that I've had with Gerald, right? In the work that she did prior to getting into the new position that she's in, the issue for her, as far as I could hear it, do you guys know Gerald?
Sure.
Okay. The issue was she had to come up with all the systems. She had to come up with the templates. How do I know what hourly fee to charge this client versus that client? Are they going to laugh at me? Laugh at me in the face? Are they going to shut the door on me? Am I too low? Am I too high? Right? You don't have any systems. You don't have any processes. So I would say absolutely, yeah. Because you are really trying to start a business, meaning an enterprise that is supposed to bring you money. Okay. So yeah. Yes.
As someone that's transferred from a government to independent consulting, I would actually disagree. I would say most of us that have gone into independent consulting already have a bank of skills, which is why we take the risk. And if we weren't, if we couldn't make, we're not employing occasionally I'll subcontract, but generally I'm not employing other people. The risk is mine, and I'm only providing a service that I've already been offering, and that's why I feel confident to be able to do it. And
That's a good point.
So I'm not, after 1 year, if I haven't gotten any contracts, I physically can't go on. So I don't think it's the same as if I'm invested in a startup, which many of my friends, the .coms or the startups, where, you know, the San Francisco firms where 1 in 100 potentially make it. I don't think consulting is the same. I don't think anyone would take the risk to do something that they weren't already doing. That would just be foolish in this marketplace.
I think, Elizabeth, you make a good point. I don't know that every independent consultant starts out with the same level of resources that you have, meaning they're really good at what they do, they have what they need, they have the social and the peer network, they already have an existing set of relationships that they can go in and say, hey, I've been working for you, let me now offer you my consulting service. So, yes, I would absolutely
But I don't
agree
think
with
anyone
what you
should
said.
wait 3 to 5 years to make a profit. If they
No.
don't make it after year 1, they're out. They're back in the private industry.
I absolutely agree. Yes, absolutely. Comments, other questions? Okay. So, let's talk about the second option, right? In this option, you're saying, no, you know, I don't want to start a business from scratch. I might not even want to go the independent consulting route. I think I just want to buy a business from somebody who already owns it, right? Let's talk about the pros side of the house. One of the biggest advantages of a business that is already in existence is you already probably have customers, right? You have some revenue. You have some partnerships in place. There's some, don't know how much, but there's some cash flow. There's some goodwill in the community that it's operating in. To Eric's point, you do have some actual historical results. Doesn't matter good or bad, but you do have some results. Right? Compared to this first scenario, you are a little more attractive to lenders. Depending on how well that business has been doing that you're buying into, will determine the response you get from lenders, but you are definitely a little more attractive to lenders in this case, because you have some actual historical results. In some instances, if this business is a retail business, has a physical location, you have a location that people know where to come to, you've been in the community for years, and that leads to an established customer base, hopefully. Right? You might have some employees in place as well. Some systems may be in place. The previous owner might have done some training, might have a marketing manual, might have an operations manual. Some systems may be in place. The other piece of it is, a lot of times, the owner might say to you, sure, I'll help you carry the load. There may be some owner financing. Not all the time, but sometimes. That might help lessen your financial burden just a little bit, right? On the disadvantage side of the house, how many of you have heard of businesses that maintain 2 separate books of business? Everyone's nodding and smiling. The question then becomes, what really is the real cash flow of Ken's business that I'm getting ready to buy? Right? I don't know. What is the goodwill? Goodwill is one of those funny, intangible, qualitative things that the owner feels they have more of than they do. It's a psychological human thing that happens. But here's why it affects you. Guess what? They're asking for a physical financial price for that goodwill. And you might not feel it's worth as much as they think it is. That becomes an issue. This is a huge one. Fully 90% of all businesses for sale have some issue. Did you guys know that? Fully 90%. Have you guys heard of a website called Biz Buy Sell? It's one of the largest databases out there of people selling and buying businesses.
Can you repeat the name?
Biz Buy Sell. B-I-Z, buysell.com.
Buy, sell.
B-U-I, buysell.com. Okay? You don't know what the hidden seller motives are. So I'm really excited. I'm liking the numbers that Ken is showing me for his business. I'm very excited to buy it. But what I don't know that Ken knows, that he will not tell me because he wants me to buy his business, is this. Within a month of buying, Ken, consequently my business, my biggest competitor is setting up shop right next door. He knows that, but I don't. I'm really excited to buy Ken's business because he has Eric, who's the rock star employee. He just makes the business run like that. What I don't know is Eric's loyalties lie with Ken. And as soon as Ken sells me the business, guess what Eric is doing?
Looking around.
Mm-hmm.
Going next door.
He's heading out. But I am buying the business based on these set of assumptions that I am making, that Ken is aware of, but he's not telling me. What are the hidden seller motives? Do you really know why somebody's selling a business? Nobody will tell you that. They want you to buy, right? This becomes one of the biggest issues with an existing business for sale. Right? You have to become a super sleuth. You have to become a detective at figuring out why they're selling the business. What are the true assets of the business that you're buying? Right? Any questions on the previous slide? All right. So let's talk about the third option, right? Buying a franchise. So the first one, a franchise is a business in a box. It's a business in a box because the business model is proven. How is it proven? What do I mean when I say proven? There are franchisees, meaning existing business owners of that particular brand operating around the country, if it's a domestic franchise, around the world, if it's a global franchise, where they're following what? The playbook, the manual, and they're making money. It's a proven business model, right? In many cases, it might be a very familiar brand, and you get to ride on the coattails of the brand recognition as a franchisee coming in. Going back again to systems, I will tell you repeatedly, a franchise is not about a product, a franchise is not about a service, a franchise is about its systems. So the clients that I work with, this is the one question I keep asking them on our weekly calls. So Ileana, you've been looking at these 3 franchises. Talk to me a little bit about what systems they have in place. What is the franchisor really giving you for the money that you're giving them? What sort of services are they giving you? Right? What does this mean? What do you guys think this means? Quick startup. Why is it quick?
You open up your box and
You open up your box. It's a quicker startup. The average 10 years to profit for a business from scratch does not apply in this case. One of the biggest reasons you pay that royalty, none of you have asked me this yet. A lot of people grumble and moan and they say, no, I don't want to pay royalties. That's fine. It's your prerogative. But there's a reason why you pay those royalties. You're exchanging some profits in the short term for a quicker ramp up. There's a reason why you are buying the box with the systems and the procedures and the policies and everything else. Okay? These are the 2 things that I will tell you has been one of the best things about my own experience since I started this. Back to Elizabeth's point, would we knowingly start a business that we didn't feel we were good at? No. Most of us would not. The beauty with a franchise, however, is, you're getting into something that you at least have an interest in, that you think you would be successful at. On top of that, your franchisor is providing you the additional tools in your toolkit that you need to be really successful. And it's a continued consulting relationship that you're going to have with them. Yes, Elizabeth?
To that point, part of my background is actually qualifying investors, million-dollar investors. I was working for the U.S. Embassy in Panama, doing the fiscal forensics on qualifying U.S. investors that want to enter the United States on the B2 and the EB2 and EB5 visas, which are the $1 million, $500,000, depending on if it's the region, depressed or not depressed. But we typically actually advised, especially foreigners that were doing these investments, rather than go into a startup, to do franchise, because of it's precisely, someone coming from Panama, someone coming from China, someone coming from India has a far better chance, and that goes for Americans as well that would not be in the sector, that do not have the sector knowledge, but we would say, you're investing $1 million. We want to ensure, we don't want you to lose your visa. They have to prove, by the way, for these Melania Trump and all the, Kushner has made the news on this visa. This is the one I'm talking about, the $1 million Chinese visas.
Yeah.
So I was working to qualify these people. We don't want to take their money and find them not making a profit within a year, because they get their visa revoked and then they're not happy, and we're not happy. We're giving them for the reasons of investment. We need to see that return. So we typically coach those people to please consider franchises, and that when we give them the support to, with a list of franchises, and here's the ones that are making profits, here's not. So just as a means of endorsing your argument.
So I paid Elizabeth a lot of money to say that. Thank you, absolutely. So I work with a lot of EB2, EB5 clients.
Oh, you do?
I do.
Yeah.
I do, right? So a lot of people will say, hey, I'm in Panama, and I would like to come into the US, or I'd like to start a business. I have this money sitting around. What can I do?
Mm-hmm.
And I think for the 500,000, you have to start a business and you have to employ 10 people within the next 5 years, something like that, right? There's a reason why franchising has been so successful, right? I'll get more into that. So thank you. Access to other franchisees for help. So this might not seem like a really big one to you guys, but when you do become a franchisee, it really does. So here's what I mean. At FranNet, we have what are known as, somebody asked a question about territories, right? We have what are known as exclusive territories. I work in DC and Virginia. That is the territory that I have bought, okay? That means my colleague who works in Maryland cannot jump into my sandbox, and vice versa. When you have very clear lines of where you're operating, you become that much more willing to share best practices. Does that make sense? Think of our jobs that we've had in the corporate world. There's a lot of, I'm not going to tell you how I did it, and I want to win, I want to curry the favors of the boss. I don't want you to be there, right? There's a lot of that. When you look into, when you are in the situation of a franchise where you are running exclusive territories, that issue is completely taken off the table, and that can be huge. I call up my colleagues in other part of the world, other part of the country to say, hey, Ileana, I'm really trying to get into the doors of this organization called 40 Plus. I know you're working with 40 Plus in Chicago. I can't get past the guards. How did you do that? Is there somebody you know at 40 Plus of Chicago that you could do an introduction for me here in Washington, D.C.? Do you see? And because he and I, or she and I are not competing, they're that much more willing to share that information with me. This is a huge one, right? With a franchise, you are in business for yourself, but you're never in business by yourself. I love that aspect of it, right? Because going into business for yourself is scary enough anyway. You want to go into it with all the support and the resources behind you that you can possibly muster. This is, as far as I'm concerned for you guys, looking at franchises, this is probably the biggest reason why to look at franchises. The industry I'm in is a highly regulated industry. The Federal Trade Commission is our regulatory body. What does that mean for you? It means these issues that we talked about here, that you don't know if you're getting the right answer to, this is information that is going to be readily available to you when you look at a franchise, and I'll tell you why. Every franchise that is required to be in good standing, or is in good standing, is required to file with the Trade Commission every single year a very specific legal document known as the FDD, a franchise disclosure document. Have any of you heard of that before? Okay. An FDD is essentially a legal tome. So if you can't fall asleep at night, have it on your nightstand, boom, you're done. Typically they run anywhere from 100 to about 500 pages. It's huge documents, but you should look at it very carefully. Every single one of my clients does. You cannot bypass this part of the process. The FDD, there are several sections to it. There's one particular section that is of interest, most interest to my clients, and it's known as an item 19. The item 19 is your earnings claim. As a franchise specialist, as a franchise consultant, if you ask me, Faizun, you've given me, of the 3 businesses, you've given me a Subway to look at. So how much does a Subway make? I will look at you and I'll say, I'm not going to be able to answer that. I know the answer, but I cannot tell you that. I am not legally allowed to make earnings claims representations. Now, you will get that answer when you get on the phone with the franchisor. You will get that answer in an even better format when you get on the call with franchisees. Because those are the people who are running that particular business on a day-in, day-out basis. Right? I'm not. The franchisor is not. The franchisees are. One of the biggest pieces of an FDD is every franchise is required to give you a complete list of franchisees, past and present, whoever bought into their system, past and present, name, email, contact information. It's in that FDD. Typically, after the second call with the franchisor is when they will say, here you go, Eric, here's our FDD, and oh, by the way, we would like you to start making, they're called validation calls, with, and they will pick from that list, they will give you, I don't know, 5, 10, 15, however many you would like. Start making validation calls, and essentially what are you doing? You're validating with franchisees what the franchisor has told you you're going to get. You're essentially saying, thank you, Mr. Franchisor, I believe you, but I will validate with your franchisees. Trust in God, but tie your camel. Right? There's a reason why this process works, you guys. That's what I'm trying to say to you. This is not close your eyes, throw darts in the dark and hope that it hits the bullseye. There's a process, there's a methodology. Right? We've placed thousands of clients very successfully in franchises around the country, around the world actually. Yes?
Is there any statistics on, well, of course it's going to change for every industry, but I've had colleagues that have bought franchises that thought they could run it as a second business. You know, they have a full-time job as a lawyer, and he ended up having to leave law to run a number of Kentucky Fried Chickens. Mm-hmm. You know, don't know, you know, if he's actually happy with that decision because people don't really share on that level. But it came as a great surprise, and I don't think that was his intention, or not, many of my others. I think they thought it was going to be second businesses. So I just wonder, because that's the questions for people, like, you know, passive income versus active income,
yes.
Time investment, ROI. I'm just wondering, you know, are you looking at that as needing to be run full time by the person that's investing?
Good point. So we're going to get into that in a later slide, Elizabeth. So what she's referring to here are what are known in the industry as semi-absentee businesses. Have any of you heard of that? Semi-absentee businesses are businesses that you can buy and you can run. You have a day job. You can run. The way you're running it is you're putting an operations manager in place, and they're running the day-to-day. You as the business owner, you're stepping in a couple of times a month, right? To make sure the books are good, the employees are happy, the shelves are stocked, right? Depending on what the business is. It is possible to do that. In my experience, Elizabeth, I find that if you are new to the world of franchising, you can get a semi-absentee, but typically the franchisor, depending on your level of expertise, will say, Elizabeth, you need to run this business full-time for the first 12 months because we want you to understand the ins and outs of your business. Once you've taken the business to a point where it's humming along nicely, sure, hire an operations manager, then you take a step back. A semi-absentee business, it's a bit of an oxymoron because you cannot from day one say, I bought the business, now let it run itself. It's a business. You have to set up the pieces in place, right? So there's at least a certain amount of time that you have to devote into it when you first begin. We'll get into that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions? Okay. What are the disadvantages? That first one, I have had people at seminars say to me after I've gone through the seminar where they'll say, you know, Faizun, this is all good and great, but I have to tell you, I have been in a job for the last 32 years, and I will be damned if I have to follow somebody else or take orders from someone else. And I say, okay, then a franchise is not the best option for you. You do have to follow the system. Back to the point you made, Elizabeth, of course I don't know the specifics of the gentleman who bought the KFC. One of the biggest reasons for failure in the franchising world that we see is that the franchisee, for whatever reason, is either unwilling or unable to follow the playbook. Because the reality of it is this: you are paying money every single month for the duration of your contract, which on average is about 10 years. A franchise agreement runs about 10 years. You're paying them money every single month. If you're not willing to follow the system for which you're paying that money, why are you in a franchise? Right? So these are the questions you have to ask yourself. There's usually an annual sales goal. Did you guys know that? Sure. Yeah. There's a sales goal. When you come in, and this will be in your franchise agreement, this will be in the FDD, it will say, our sales goal is X, and it completely varies from business to business. It will also lay out for you, if you're not able to meet these goals, here's what's going to happen. We'll start working with you. We'll try a couple of remediation things, blah, 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 blah. If you're still not able to do it, then at some point we will have to separate and go our ways. Now, I will tell you, that is the last scenario that franchises want to do. Why do you think that is? Because they brought you in to make money. They will work with you until they feel that this is a hopeless case and then they will not do it. In most instances, that's a last resort scenario. I really have not seen that happen too often. But yes, there's a sales goal. Every single franchise. We talked about this a couple of times already. You have to pay a franchise fee, which is a one-time fee. It's a fee that, if you will, allows you to buy the brand name, allows you to buy a license to operate as XYZ, and then ongoing royalty. Any questions on that?
So if the business does not succeed, then that franchise fee is lost. There's no
That's right.
tax that comes back.
Yeah, good question. Yeah. We talked about this as well. Protected territories. I find that to be a great advantage in the work I do. Some people might look at the same exact thing and say, well, you're just limiting where I can work. And the answer to that is, then you don't look at franchises that have exclusive markets. You look at franchises that don't, because both exist. Okay? It's a binding contract. Okay? The franchise agreement that you're signing, it's for a duration. I've seen a couple that are 7 years, but for the most part it's 10. It's a binding contract. You should look at it very carefully. One of the things I tell clients to do at the end of the process when they're getting ready to sign, don't sign a damn thing until you've had it reviewed by a franchise attorney. I'm not one. I don't have that expertise, but I can refer you to a couple that I work with who are very good, right? Essentially, you want to know that whatever you're entering into, you're doing it with your eyes and ears open. Yeah? Make sense? This is another one. People don't talk a lot about this, but it can be an issue. The franchise's problems become your problems. Here's what I mean. Do you guys remember about a year and a half or so ago, it was during the summer when we all found out the subway footlong is actually not a footlong? You guys remember that? Yeah? What happened in the aftermath of that? Stock prices tumbled. Right? They took a hit. Their goodwill flushed down the toilet. Why? If all of you were Subway franchisees, you all got painted by the same brush. Their problems became your problems. So a lot of people will say to me, I don't want to look at a business that is not well known. Okay? And I say, okay, that's fine, but understand what you're getting into. Just because a brand is not well known on the East Coast doesn't mean that they're not known on the West Coast and they're slowly making their way over. There are advantages to be had with businesses that are not well known, like a McDonald's, like a Jiffy Lube, right? There's something to keep in mind. Questions? Comments? Am I making you guys fall asleep? No? Good? All right. So I mentioned this before, right? Why are you paying royalties? Making a trade-off. You're giving them some profits in the longer term for helping reduce your risk in the shorter term. How are they helping you reduce the risk? By offering you what? A quicker startup, a quicker ramp up. I want these numbers to kind of settle into your mind. In the United States today, not even 15% of businesses are franchises. Yet, they receive fully half of all the service and retail dollars. Which means what? Eric, do the math. 15, 85. Okay, 85, right? Roughly 85% of businesses, they receive the other half. The money that all franchises make total about 2.3 trillion a year. The point of this slide is to tell you, franchising at its very core is a concept. It's designed to take a disproportionate amount of market share away from its non-franchised counterparts. Does it make sense? I'm Faizun's Plumbing. Okay? I'm a startup business. And Ken is with Plumbing Worldwide, a pretend franchise. Every single time, Ken is going to make more money than I will. And and this is across every industry, it is across every category that you can think of. It's a pretty astounding number. It's a pretty astounding fact. Every single time. Why do you guys think that is? What was a franchise? It was a business in a?
This is lots. It's economies of scale too.
It is economies of scale. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
And people tend to gravitate towards things they recognize. And that's the thing. So there's a reputational carryover, which works for you as opposed to against you most of the time.
Absolutely. You know, you raise a point, Eric, I was going to bring up in a later slide. Don't underestimate the psychological impact of human beings wanting familiarity. How many of us know McDonald's sucks, like big time? Right? But guess what? When my 4-year-old is in the car and she's having a tantrum and she wants to go to McDonald's, I'm at the end of my wits, I've had a long day, I can't deal with this anymore, guess where I'm going to go? Right? I know exactly what we're going to get when I walk through the golden arches. But I go because I know what to expect. Don't underestimate that. That's huge. Okay? It's very easy to start a business. It's not so easy to stay in business. You go to the Virginia Corporation Commission for me, right? You pay $125, you incorporate your business. Boom, you're done, you're a business. Then what? Right? With a franchise, these are the things that I tell my clients to look out for. Here are the key things I want them looking at when they look at different franchise models. Because ultimately, what are you getting into? At the very least, this is a 10-year relationship you're going to have with them. You want to know all of these things before you do that, before you make that commitment. Okay, moving on to myths. How many of you think this is true? Franchises succeed because of the quality of their product. Who did we just talk about? If that were the case, they would not dominate half of the fast food industry. Yeah? So, what is the deal? How many of you here think you can make a burger better than McDonald's? How many of you? Be honest. Okay? When I ask this question, people laugh and every single hand goes up. And yet, we keep going for the reasons that Eric just described. So if it's not the product, what is it? How many of you have seen the movie The Founder? If you are seriously considering a franchise, get the movie. Watch it. The Founder. It's on how McDonald's started. The Founder. Right? So if it's not the product, what is it?
It's a familiarity.
It's a familiarity. It is the system. Franchises are all about their business systems. With McDonald's, there's a process. Right? There's literally an assembly line. People are lined up. Right? You flip the patty, then I do this, and then I do this, then you put a little thing of mustard, and then you put little pieces, 2 little pieces of cucumber, blah, 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 until Gina, the customer, gets a quarter pounder. There's a system, and the system is repeated ad nauseum.
You know what you get.
You know exactly what you get. When systems are repeated, when processes are repeated ad nauseum, what is the other thing that happens? You bring costs down radically.
Again, economies of scale.
It's all about the system, my friends. It's all about the system. Okay? Successful franchises emerge in new industries that have zero competition. What do you guys think? Is that true? Logically, it seems like it might be, right? Do you want competition when you're thinking about starting a business?
Yeah.
You want competition? Why?
It proves that there's a demand. It shows the demand side. If you're in a new industry, I mean, you haven't actually proven demand.
Further, can you guys name me one industry that has zero competition?
It's a reality marketplace competition.
Okay. Back to McDonald's. This is the example that most people are familiar with. When McDonald's started in the 40s, I think, mid-40s, there were absolutely burger joints in every corner. If you see the movie, it becomes very clear. Right? It wasn't as though they came in and they created this new concept called burgers and fries. No. Do you guys remember? Well, I wasn't born then. I saw the movie. But there were these burger places where the waiters and the waitresses, mostly waitresses, they would come on roller skates to your car.
They still do that in some
They still do that. This concept has existed for a very long time before McDonald's came in. But what did they do when they came in? Well, they came in, and now 95% of the fast food market is franchised. Isn't that unbelievable? What does that mean? Only 5% of fast food restaurants are mom and pop. Right? Franchising accelerates market dominance over local competitors. Back to the point I was making, it takes away a disproportionate amount of market share away from non-franchised counterparts. McDonald's came in and this is what they did. They said, okay, well, Eric, you are running your burger business here. What is the thickness of your patty? And Eric looked at me with a blank face. I said, okay. I went to Ileana. I said, Ileana, how thick are your fries? I don't know. They said, okay, there's something here that we can do. Let us standardize. Now the word is standardize. Let us standardize the thickness of the patties. Let us standardize the length and the thickness of the fries. When you standardize, what else goes down? Costs. Right? And time. There's one really great example in the movie. Have any of you seen it? None.
No.
There's one great example where, so the two brothers who started McDonald's, that eventually went on to become the McDonald's that we now know, they were making milkshakes from scratch. So Ray Kroc, who comes in and becomes the founder of McDonald's as we know him now, he looked at it and he said, this is just taking too much freaking time for the amount of money it's bringing us. Somebody brought to him, he said, this woman that was one of the franchisees said, you know, I've discovered this new thing. It's very popular in Europe. They're these powdered milkshakes. Here's a glass of water, you pour it in there, you stir it a little bit, it has exactly the same thickness and the flavor of a milkshake. Now, we can have arguments about ethical, was it right, was it really, that's a different issue altogether, but the point is, they wanted to bring their costs down, they wanted to bring the time down for how long it took to serve the product to the customer, right? That's what McDonald's did. I want to give you guys another example. This is one of my favorite examples. Hair care. The hair care industry started franchising in the 1980s. Not very long, right? Does anybody know what consolidated means? Consolidated or standardized? Exactly. So when you have an industry that has a lot of mom and pop businesses, that's a fantastic industry for franchising. Taking the McDonald's example, right? Every year since they began in the 80s, hair care franchises have taken 2% of the market share. That 2% seems like a tiny, tiny number. In real numbers, it's not very tiny at all. How many of you have seen sports clips? Right? How many of you have seen hair cuttery? How many of you have seen bubbles? These are all examples of? That's right. That's right. Okay? Again, disproportionate market share. The question becomes, can you start a business? Elizabeth, can you start a business doing consulting? That's a business that you started from scratch. And the answer is hell yeah. Absolutely she can. That is not the point. The point is, can she start a business in a particular industry and make money faster? At the end of the day, that's what franchising is offering you. It's not that you can't do it without a franchise. You absolutely can. But the point is, how quickly are you making money? How quickly are you breaking even? How quickly then are you turning a profit? Okay? So, successful franchises emerge in basic industries. If you work with me, you will find that I like very non-sexy stuff. I like very basic stuff. I'm not very glamorous. Basic stuff. Why? Because businesses that are need to have are businesses that will always be in business. It's not a nice to have, if I have some money, I'll do this and that. No, no, no. It's a need to have service or a product, right? They have developed systems to dominate the industry. The biggest myth of all, right? Only fast food and maybe retail. Here's the reality. These are the 5 major categories of franchises you will find. Right? Food, cars, retail. So these are concepts you would find in a mall, for example. Does anybody know what business services is? You are a franchise that offers marketing services to other small businesses in your community. You're a B2B franchise. You're a franchise that offers IT services to other small businesses in your community. You're a B2B franchise. What is this? Guesses. Home personal services. Yes, Linda.
Personal assistant, house sitting,
Good examples. What else?
like home health care maybe.
That's right. What is this?
Housekeeping.
Huge. Residential cleaning franchises are one of the most wildly successful industries in franchising. It's unreal. Okay? Home personal services. How many of you have seen retail fronts called Massage Envy? Under that category. You had a question?
Actually, I wanted to touch back on the food one. One of the previous slides said something about like 95% of the fast food was 95% franchise. What I want to know is, I don't think you're going to have an answer, but just for the sake of argument, how much of the fast food franchises are actually run by the franchisees versus what's run by the company?
It varies. So you are referring to what are known as corporate locations. Almost every franchise will have corporate locations that are run by corporate, and then so do you know how corporate locations come about? They're test beds, right? Let us see if ABC is going to work before we release it out into the general population. That's what the intent of a corporate location is. Does that help?
Yeah, because the reason why I was asking, up where I'm at, there were a number of McDonald's that were actually owned by a franchisee, and there were others that were actually owned by the company
By the
itself.
company. Yep. You will typically find, so if you went to the corporate location, let's pretend it's a McDonald's, you might see things on the menu that you don't see at other locations.
And the other one, some of the Chick-fil-A's are franchises too.
There you go. Right?
Okay.
So,
Thanks.
these are the 5 major categories. I want you to walk away with a sense of how diverse and complex and rich the franchising tapestry is. So as I said, there are about 3,200 brands or companies that are franchises, just in the United States alone. In more than 90 industries, right? Far more than just fast food and retail. 90 different industries. So somebody, you guys were giving me the numbers, 50,700, right? That's what that is. So these are the operating units. The number's probably going to be a little higher now. And the other thing to keep in mind is, not every single franchisee owns just one unit,
Yeah.
right? These are operating units, okay? The things to keep in mind if you're starting to look at franchises is, I alluded to this, is it even available where you live? It might not be, might be completely sold out. Somebody mentioned home health care. You require a very specialized type of license to be able to operate that, particularly in Virginia and in Maryland. Some of them, the number of licenses have been fully sold out. You can't even operate it in your state. It's done.
Not surprising at all.
Not surprising at all. By the way, home health care, another industry. Think of the demographic shift that's happening. That'll tell you why it's been so successful, right?
Aging population.
Aging population. Not all have a good track record. Of the 3,200 companies out there, you should not believe that they're all equally fabulous, because they're not. This is where your due diligence comes in. This is where I come in. They're not all the same. Right? Before you write that check over, you want to find that out. This is a really big one. Do you remember back to the slide where we talked about what does success mean for you? Success is, to an extent, a combination of your personal and your financial goals. Personal, you might say, I want to spend more time with my kids, right? I want to spend half the year in Bermuda. I don't know, whatever it is for you. Financial goals, I want to be able to pay off the house. I want to be able to send my kids, both of my kids, to college loan-free. I don't know what it is for you. That's what we do. That's what we find out. but the business that you're looking at has to fit your financial and your personal goal. Unlike a job that you force fit yourself into by shaving years off your resume and putting a younger looking picture of yourself on your LinkedIn profile, yeah? With a franchise, the franchise needs to fit you. You don't need to fit anyone. You're done with that. You've done enough, you've arrived at a point in your career where whatever you're looking at has to fit who you are, not the other way around. This is one of the beauties of the franchise. Nobody has asked me this yet. Y'all must be like, I don't know, inherited like $50 million each, and you don't have this worry. Franchises do not cost $1 million, contrary to popular belief. Why don't you give you a sense of the types of businesses that are out there? Does anybody know what category of business this comprises? They typically cost above $500,000. Any guesses?
FedEx.
Category. Yeah. Fast food restaurant. Anytime you look at a business that involves a retail location, your costs go up, particularly in our part of the country. Restaurants comprise known as the second most expensive category in franchising. Does anybody know what's the first? You see them everywhere. Big buildings. What'd you say?
I said Max.
Hotels. Okay? So restaurants. What are these? What are the other types of businesses that require a location?
Retail store.
Retail stores. Retail. Yes, sir.
Gas station.
That would fall under, that would be between these two, depending on the location that you're buying into. There are some, because essentially a gas station is about the sighting, the visibility of that station, right? So if you're buying a location in Washington, D.C. versus Idaho, your costs will be significantly different. It will fall between these two. Does anybody know what this is? These are what are known as office-based businesses. This is what I have. I have an office in Tyson's. It requires a location, but it's not a retail location.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little less expensive. What do you guys think this one is? The under 50,000. What do you guys think this is? So before you all get super excited and ask me about this and say, I want one of these. Typically, this is the range that I show clients businesses in. Why? This is the range, the 100 to 250, that allows me to find you a business that can replicate a six-figure income. Most people I work with in the DMV, they had a six-figure income, they got laid off. They had a six-figure income, they decided to leave. They're trying to replicate a six-figure income. You will not be able to replicate a six-figure income with this. This is what are known as side businesses.
This what?
Side businesses. You're running a successful business, you have a little bit of money set aside, and you say, Faizun, I think I want a side business, I think I want to have a couple vending machines. That's an example. Okay? So any business that I will show to you, the intent is to replicate a six-figure income. For lack of a better word, I call this my formula. Go back again to minimizing risk and maximizing your return. Isn't that what we're all trying to do? Right? Why we're even looking at alternative career options? First thing we're going to look at, do they have a good track record? When you look at the FDD, it will tell you of all the past and present franchisees. So let's pretend they have 500 units across the country. Of the 500 units, how many shut down? How many franchisees walked away? How many franchisees sued them? Is it a good system? Have they made money? You're going to look at the item 19, the earnings claim. Have franchisees made money? Depending on the business you're looking at, can you even legally open in the market that you reside in? After you find out if it can be legally opened, is it available? There's a fabulous, fabulous franchise. It's a children's sports education. My child actually takes swimming classes there. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic model because it's so simple and franchises have been so successful. With the exception of Alexandria, they're fully sold out in Virginia. And Maryland was sold out about 2.5 years ago. Right? I can even show that to you. So if you said, Faizun, I want to look for a sports education for children, I can show you that. So is it even available? All these aside, perhaps this is the most important thing. Is it a business that's a good fit for you? So the example I like to give, I knew coming into FranNet that one of the key things that I was supposed to do as a business owner, one of my key responsibilities was to be able to do this. Speak to a room full of people I've never met before, engage them, have them ask me questions, right? Have a conversation. If I was the kind of person where talking to total strangers made me want to vomit all over myself, how successful do you think I would be in this business? That's a serious question, right? I would wake up with a knot in my tummy every single morning, right? These are the kinds of things that I'm going to try and tease out of you. What are those things, Eric? You would rather go have dental surgery without Novocaine than do those things. Right? Fit. Perfect fit. One of the reasons so many people fail at entrepreneurship, it's a mismatch between who they are and what the business is. That's what we try to get at. If we can get all of these things in line for you, it doesn't mean you will never fail. There is zero risk. It just means you have the highest likelihood of success. So very quickly, Ken, how much time do we have?
Maybe another 5 minutes?
Perfect. I want you to take away from this slide. You can look at it later on. There are a category of businesses known as recession-resistant businesses. You remember I said to you, I like unsexy businesses, basic industries? These are examples of some. They're recession-resistant. I have a quiz for you guys. Regardless of whether the economy is going up or it's going down, what continues to grow? We all have it in this room except that gentleman back in the end. I'm picking on you.
Here.
Hair salons. Right? Basic. Something sexy about it. Nothing earth-shattering about it. Except when you look at the earnings claims, then it is. Right? These are examples of businesses that are available in the DMV. Semi-absentee. These are examples of categories of businesses that can be run semi-absentee. A lot of people might say, I really love what I do. I want to get a job or I have a job, but I'm really interested in creating another stream of revenue. These are some examples of businesses that allow you to do that. Where you get an operations manager and they run the business for you on a day-to-day basis. Ultimately, this is what a franchise is supposed to do. Depending on your personal, your lifestyle, your financial, your income goals, we take that into account, and then we say, what are the businesses out there that most greatly will reduce your risk? Okay. One of the first steps that happens, Sterling asked me the question. The first thing that happens is if you say, this is something I wanted to do, I'd like to work with you, the first step happens is that I will send you what is known as, I guess I don't have it here. Oh, I do. The franchise assessment. Okay? You fill out the franchise assessment. I typically almost always have a 10-minute call to clarify the financials the person has submitted. Once that checks out, then the next step becomes a 3-hour meeting that you and I will have. Yep, 3 hours. You're going to have to sit down with me for 3 hours. If you are married, if you have a significant other, they need to be with you. Why do you think I said that? Starting a business is hard. Starting a business without the support of the person closest to you is almost nearly impossible. If there are issues, I want to know it right then and there. You will not waste my time, I will not waste yours. And we will part as friends. You will be surprised at the many, many times where somebody said, oh yes, oh yeah, he has no issue. Not so, right? I want to know that. At the end of the 3-hour meeting, let me go back a little bit. Once I get back your PFA, your assessment, This is the next thing I do. This becomes the core of the entire research process. I build what is known as your business model. Does anybody know what a business model is? This. It's not a business plan. A business model, think of it as a blank sheet of paper. It's your canvas. And together we sit down and you tell me, Faizun, specifically, granular level, these are the things I want for my business. We put that down. One of the key concerns a lot of people have coming to me, do I have to go back to school to run a franchise? No, you do not. We will take your transferable skill sets and we will parlay them into business models that require them. Right? We'll do all these. This is the research process. Every client looks at 3 businesses. 3 businesses whose business models fit your business model that we've created. I will put you in touch with them. They will have that first call with you. You will receive the FDD. You will then move on to, this is the heart of the process. This is where it takes you the most time. You will do validation calls with existing franchisees to find out, is this a business for me? Can I do what they're doing and can I be successful? Towards the end of the process is something called a discovery day, where the franchisor will invite you to their corporate headquarters. They want to meet you. This is a 10-year relationship they're getting into. Do I like you? Are you a pain in the neck to work with? What do you like? Right? It's a mutual, remember, this is a mutual interview process. Right? You visit with them, you come back. Both parties are happy and you say, Faizun, this is the one for me. And I say, time out. Take that franchise agreement, get it reviewed by an attorney. You do that, if everything checks out, you sign the agreement and you become a franchisee. Start to finish, the process takes anywhere from 45 to 60 days. If you do due diligence the way it's meant to be done, there's no way in hell you should take more than 60 days. Make sense? Talked about this a little bit. 50K, liquid capital. Net worth, typically 500,000. A little bit less is fine. These are some ways people use what they have. I work with the 3 biggest franchise funders, funding organizations in the country, and they all provide SBA loans. Now, the SBA loan is the creme de la creme of loans. If you have a fantastic credit history, etc., that's something that you can access. Okay? Just the different ways. If you are going to start a business in the next 3 to 6 months, this is the time to begin. If you have even thought that you wanted to begin a business that required a retail location, you should have started 6 months ago. Because of the time it takes to find the location. Okay? I err on the side of being conservative. I say you need to have at least 6 months of personal savings. I do not want you and your spouse and your children living on cup of noodles while you do this. And then you come knock on my door in 8 months and kick my ass. Right? So there you go, that's the process. And there might not be a good fit for you. This is not one size fits all. A franchise may not be the best option. My friends, that's all I got for you. You have an evaluation form. Kindly please fill it out. I do read every single line that you put in there. Give me the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I really do use it to tweak the next time that I present this seminar. Thank you so much for your attention.
And we would ask just if you take one more extra second and fill out the little half sheet 40 plus form, that'll help us improve what we're offering as well. Can I ask a quick question while folks are doing that? So often we hear from other speakers who come through at 40 plus and they talk about engage your passion in your wherever you are, whatever step you might take next, finding that next job that engages your passion. In your experience with folks that have looked at this as a pathway, are there passions that they're trying to engage, or what's been their successful recipe about the I can't imagine that folks may not have a passion to be a hair care professional or a business owner.
Fantastic.
What do you find are those passions that really people want to engage that are successful with franchising?
So can I give you my example?
Please.
Because it's the example that I know best.
Of course.
I started my first company. It was a business I started started from scratch. It still continues, I was going to say was. It is a social enterprise. And essentially the model is very simple. We work with women handloom weavers in Bangladesh, where I'm from originally, and we create a market for their goods here in the United States. The money goes back and goes into their livelihoods and their training, and the rest is reinvested in the company. I did this because I was so deeply unhappy with what I was doing at Verizon, and I needed an outlet. I want you to understand my thought process in terms of passion, right? Answering your question in a little bit of a roundabout way. Started the company, and I realized that one of the things that I absolutely loved the most was speaking engagements where I would go into conferences, social entrepreneurship conferences, other venues, and I would talk to people interested in starting a business or interested in a particular aspect of my business, and I would talk to them about what it is we did. Nothing made me happier. It didn't pay me, but that's what I really enjoyed. And I said, this is really interesting, and I stored that away. One thing led to another. One of the largest speakers associations in the United States found me and came to me and said, we would like to bring you on board as one of our speakers. I literally laughed at the moment. I was like, you're going to pay me to speak? Like, who's going to do that, right? But do you understand?
Yeah.
I didn't know this was my thing. This was my shtick. It developed. So fast forward, I get laid off, and I'm looking at what world of options are in front of me. I look at franchises. I looked at all of these categories that I just shared with you, hair care, blah, 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 right? This stuck out. It was very unsexy. Franchise consulting, like really? Putting me to sleep, what is that, right? But the more I delved into it, the more I said, okay, what are the key responsibilities of the business owner? This is one thing I will ask each of you if you start the process with me. Do you understand, Eliana, what are the business responsibilities of the owner? It's doing speaking engagements. It's working one-on-one with clients. It's being able to talk about what I do in very diverse audiences, right? My passion was connecting with groups of people on what it was that I did, but to do it in a very human way. You see, I'm very unscripted. Almost all the time I get out of my seminar because this is what I do, right? I don't know if that helps.
Okay.
This is how I discovered it.
Sure.
For my clients, this is what I try to do.
Okay.
Right? If somebody says, no, I don't really have a passion, that's okay. You're not flawed. You're not defective. So what are you good at? And Eric might say, well, friends and family, they've always told me I'm a numbers whiz. How so? Well, I can do blah,